Okay.
My name is Greg Plunkett. I'm from the New York Botanical Garden. I'm one of the researchers here on the Plants for People project to help document the plants of Vanuatu, their uses, and also their indigenous language names. And the project really started from my early experiences in Vanuatu dating back to 2003. I came on a 3-week expedition to look at plants in Tanna, in Efate, and in Santo. And right from the beginning, I knew this was a special place in terms of not only the plant diversity, but also the diversity of languages and the amazing culture that was preserved here. And in 2006, I was lucky enough to participate in the Santo 2006 expedition. It was a much longer expedition. We spent over a month in Santo, and then I came down on my own to Tafea province, and that's really when I started learning how Tafea was such a rich place culturally and where the traditional practices were maintained. And so when I moved to New York, I started talking to my colleague Michael Balick, and we discussed opportunities for working together in the Pacific. And so we decided to try to come to Vanuatu to begin this project. And right from the start, it was a very important partnership between the Department of Forestry and the Tafea Cultural Center. So when we first discussed starting the project, we met with several members of the Forestry Department who I had already worked with in the past. They were very enthusiastic about it. And they said, okay, let's go down and do some trips and talk to the people and see what they wanted, because we really wanted this to be about what the people wanted, not what we wanted to do. And so Forestry came with us, Sam Chanel, Presley Dovo, Philemon Ala, and then the very first time we came to Tanna, we were met with by John Pascal Wahe. And John Pascal and several other cultural center workers from the Tafea Cultural Center, they just seemed to know immediately what we wanted to do. And so we had discussions with councils of chiefs, we had discussions with local leaders in villages, and pretty soon we were on the ground collecting plants and collecting useful information about the plants. And some of the early villages were a little bit skeptical about what we wanted to do. Maybe they thought we wanted to steal their knowledge rather than just record it. And as we began working with some communities, other communities said, hey, we want you to come here. And the project grew and grew. And then people started asking us, we really need help conserving our forests. And so we began a conservation element to the program. And then we were here in March of 2015, which was when Cyclone Pam struck. And at that time, there was a tremendous devastation in Tafea province. And we experienced that firsthand. We saw the damage of the cyclone while it was happening. We saw it afterwards. And then we developed a project to help people recover from the cyclone. So that involved, again, sort of going into the forest, identifying areas that were important for sources of clean water, and then helping bring the resources and equipment and supplies needed to distribute that water back to the villages, something that's really important for the people here. And it also showed the people, they already understood that, but they also helped make that connection even stronger between the forest and their everyday life, because their everyday life depends on water for drinking, bathing, cooking, and then they see that strong connection with the forest. And then most recently we had this discussion with Jean Pascal about a cultural school. It was really his idea. He said it would really be great to teach the young people the information that was being slowly but surely lost, that there was sometimes a lack of transmission of knowledge across generations. So the idea of the custom school was to bring people together from different parts, in this case in South Tanna, primarily in the Nafe language, and to discuss the connections between preserving their culture and the plants that they need to preserve that culture from their forests. And so the custom house that's right behind me is a perfect example of that. You can't make this custom house with just the plants that grow around the village. You have to go into the forest because there are certain species that are only found in primary pristine forests. And so it's really a shining example of not only our project and the custom school, but the whole idea about trying to preserve plants, people, and their custom.
So maybe just one last question. Today you have seen, I mean, the whole this week you have seen people coming here, especially the young people, the women, the ladies, learning how to weave mats and all those traditional things, and building a house. So what is your impression when you see all this coming together during this whole week?
I think I have two impressions. The first impression is the people of Vanuatu are remarkably knowledgeable about so many different things. They can build a house, they can cook food, they can go out into the forest and hunt, they can go out into the ocean and fish. You know, where I come from in the United States, people are very specialized. They only know how to do one or two things. If we need a house built, we have to go get somebody, hire them, pay money. But here the people know how to do those things themselves. And yet, we see the beginnings of that specialization happening in Vanuatu. And so what the custom school helped to demonstrate was that people can start teaching each other the kinds of skills that their fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers knew, and preserve it, and not lose it, and be able to transmit it to their children and their grandchildren.
And one of those things is how to read the plants and to connect it with the yam season of harvesting of yam or taro.
Right.
Right.
There's so many environmental cues that the forest has. So we've seen what are sometimes called calendar plants. So in the forest yesterday when we were collecting, we saw a plant that we call scientifically Hedecaria darstenioides. And when that plant is making its ripe fruits, which are dark purple or black, then the people in the village know it's time to harvest the water taro. And there are many other plants in the forest that are signals for what people should be doing in their gardens. So those we refer to as calendar plants. In other places we've seen plants that are used as message plants. So for example, a certain tribe might use one species of plant, they lay it at the doorstep of somebody, then they go run away, and they wait till the person to come out and see the message plant, and they know, oh, somebody's looking for me to give a message. So there are ways of communications that are plant-based. And these are things that we don't have in our culture, or maybe we had a long time ago and lost them. And they're still alive and living here in Vanuatu. And it's something that's absolutely worth preserving. And as Vanuatu takes its place among the nations of the world, it wants to be able to distinguish itself. It doesn't want to be another US or another China or another Japan. It wants to be Vanuatu. And the only way it can do that is to preserve these traditional practices. And the custom school is a good way to help do that.
Okay.
Number one?
Number one on it.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.